And welcome back to Live Now from Fox. We did want to ask you, our viewers, do you think Sean Diddy Combs should be freed today or serve a prison term? You can vote here if you scan that QR code in the top right-hand corner of your screen or head to livenowfox.com/connect. You can weigh in. We'll pop this up throughout this interview here before we bring in Larry Newmeister with the Associated Press. He's been covering this extensively. And if you are just tuning in, Sean Diddy Combs facing sentencing today in a criminal case that could keep him locked up for years. So let's bring in Larry right now here on Live Now from Fox, joining us outside courthouse. Good morning to you, Larry. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Good morning.
All right.
It's going to be a long day.
It is going to be a long day. I know you're going to head right inside there after we get off with you, so we're going to try to not take up too much of your time. But let's start with this. We know several people are set to speak today, lawyers, at least one victim. Given that, as you just said, how long could this go on? Is this going to wrap up today?
They're saying it is expected to last the entire day, and they're not even sure it's going to finish. It could continue over till Monday. It really depends upon how long it all takes. You know, the defense has a video they want to show that's probably about 11 minutes in length. But they also have 4 defense lawyers who are expected to speak. And that's going to stretch it out. Also, the prosecution will speak. Oftentimes with these sentencing proceedings, they argue about things you might not expect, like how to calculate the federal sentencing guidelines that judges don't have to follow, but they're supposed to calculate them and then decide how it plays into what the ultimate sentence is. So sometimes I've seen arguments for something like that go on for 3 hours, or they could be arguing over what's the amount of money involved in the crime and how that might factor into the sentencing. You just never know what roads they might go down that might make the sentencing last a lot longer than you expect. I saw that poll that you're conducting. That was interesting because let's keep in mind, first of all, Combs has already spent almost 13 months behind bars. His defense lawyers say that's enough. He shouldn't spend any more time in jail. But the prosecution says he should not spend less than 11 years and 3 months in prison. And the probation department that the judges use as a barometer of how perhaps the evidence should be used as they make their decisions, the probation department is recommending a 12-year prison term. Oftentimes, I find the judges in this courthouse tend to cut it down the middle. If that occurred, it would mean that Combs would probably get a sentence somewhere between 4 to 6 years. But it's impossible to predict. This judge hasn't been particularly lenient since the conviction at trial. Initially, his defense lawyers tried to get him out of prison right away, or out of jail right away. He's in a federal lockup in Brooklyn. They said that because he was exonerated on the 2 most serious charges, sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy, that because of that, he's only convicted on lesser charges of basically prostitution-related charges. And as a result of that, they say he should be freed now, and that they obeying the jury's verdict would be not sending him to prison more. But prosecutions say his long history of violence and all the bad things he did and the people he harmed means he should spend considerable more time behind bars.
Larry, going off of that, we do know that he's set to be sentenced for violating the Federal Mann Act. And for our viewers, that's an anti-prostitution law with a century-old history. Does that play into the sentencing at all here today? And if so, how?
Well, it's an interesting law. I mean, the defense says it's so outdated, it's ridiculous that he's even, still in jail and that he's, being considered for more years behind bars. But the prosecution says that this law was meant to prevent all the things that come with those prostitution-related crimes, like drugs, which played prominent role in the Combs case. And the prostitution, the abuse of women, which again they say played a big role in the case, and especially in the violence. Combs was on video beating up his now ex-girlfriend, Cassie. Longer name is Cassandra. Her nickname is Cassie, and Ventura. She's been very public, even writing a letter to the judge saying he should spend considerable time in jail because his victims are fearful of him, that when he gets out, he'll seek retribution against them. So, prosecution put in 7 letters from many of I believe 6 of them had testified at the trial, saying these people fear for their lives if he gets out. And they're not buying a letter he wrote to the judge that was submitted last night, in which he says he is a changed man. He says that when he was first locked up in August of last year, or actually September of last year, he became very depressed and considered that maybe his life shouldn't even go on. And he has been, his lawyers say, on suicide watch the entire time he's been in jail. But now he says he's full of a positive spirit. He's a changed man. He said he's not doing drugs or alcohol for the first time in 25 years. And he's not going to be the Sean Combs that he was before. And that on that basis alone, he should really be given considerable leniency. So it'll be up to the judge to weigh all these factors and decide what he ultimately decides is the punishment. I will say this, though. Even after he was exonerated on the 2 most serious charges, which one of them carried a mandatory minimum of 15 years behind bars, the others also carried life sentences. So he was visibly happy in court as soon as he was exonerated on those charges. And I think his defense lawyers expected him even to get out that day in early July. But this judge has not been receptive to their arguments that he should have even been freed on bail. And the judge has cited the violence that occurred that he used against his girlfriends, and his ex-girlfriends say that violence was used to coerce them to have these wild, sexual experiences where male sex workers would be hired to have sex with his then girlfriends, now ex-girlfriends, while he watched and some often filmed the encounters. His lawyers later tried to claim that the filming of the encounters turned him into a porn producer, and thus the charges should be thrown out on the grounds that he was exercising his First Amendment rights when he was having these sexual experiences, which his defense lawyers dismiss as just simple threesomes. But the judge rejected that argument and said the charges remain, and he will be sentencing him today and possibly Monday, but hopefully just today.
Right. And Larry, I wanted to ask you here, as we do have this poll up once again for our viewers, should he be freed? Should he serve time? As you said, he's already served a good amount of time there. But I wanted to ask you whether this wraps up today, whether this wraps up Monday, what comes next after the sentencing for not just Combs, but maybe even the other individuals who were involved in all of this?
Well, there will certainly be a long appeal that will go on for years. Especially if it's a longer sentence. And his lawyers will make a motion saying our arguments on appeal are so good that he should be freed pending appeal. Those arguments would most certainly be rejected by this judge, who, throughout has believed that Combs belonged behind bars, in part, initially when he was locked up and not granted bail after his arrest. The judge cited the fact that he had apparently spoken to some of the individuals who the government was contacting and considering using at trial against him. And the judge, believed that there was possibly witness tampering going on. And so this judge is, a lot will depend on how the judge reacts to the letter that Combs wrote to the judge saying he's a changed man and he would never do the things he did before now. And if the judge buys that argument, he could be more lenient. But it's very possible he might see that, he has said things like that in the past, even before he was arrested, sounding like the greatest guy on the earth. This promotional video that his defense lawyers put out today, which the judge will see, about 11 minutes long, it shows him just being the greatest guy. All these clips of him playing at the beach with children and giving inspiring speeches about how to live life to children and his employees and other people, and just seeming to be the greatest guy in the world. And we all know that was when some of the worst things were happening. So it's possible the judge might see that video and say, wow, you said a lot of the same things you said in the letter to me yesterday. You were saying things like that when these videos were recorded. So, and the judge is also mindful that Combs has 8 lawyers. I mean, most defendants in this courthouse are lucky to have one lawyer, and he's this is, I'm sure, costing probably tens of millions of dollars to defend him. And the defense lawyers are making every argument possible and filing more papers with the judge than pretty much I've ever seen. And I've been here 33 years. So, he's got a forceful voice on his side in the form of all of these lawyers, and also some former employees and such who came out in his favor, and his family members wrote powerful letters, trying to influence the judge. So it'll be very interesting just to hear what the judge says today and how he reacts to everything that's been filed. And even if there isn't a sentence dispensed today, I believe we'll get a pretty clear indication of where the judge is headed by the comments he makes as he's listening to the various arguments, both by the defense and prosecution.
Right. We have seen he has also a twice rejected bail for Combs as well. So interesting to see how this is going to play out. Larry, before I let you go, because I know you got to run inside, just really quickly here, you have been covering this the past several months. You've been inside that courtroom. What has this been like for you as a member of the media who is covering a very high-profile case? Can you just share some insight into that? Because you have a perspective a lot of us don't have.
Well, yeah, I've seen famous people in the courtroom before. There was the Martha Stewart trial back in the early 2000s. And, we've had a lot of big cases in this courthouse where the media has paid a lot of attention to what's going on. Sean Combs is an interesting defendant because he was so engaged in his defense. He was constantly talking to his lawyers, writing them notes. When Cassie was on the witness stand for 4 days, testifying while she was 9 months pregnant, he must have written, dozens, if not 100 notes to his lawyers, probably suggesting questions. But there were also a couple of occasions where he stopped his lawyers from asking a witness questions, and actually controlled when they ended their cross-examinations. You don't see that happening very often with defendants. But remember who he is. He's this incredible music producer who's had this history of such an impact in the hip hop world, in the music world. He knows how to produce things. He knows how to, in this instance, influence his lawyers and try to control what's happening in the courtroom. And it seems to have worked to him to some degree because, he did get exonerated on the 2 most serious charges. So we'll see what happens at the sentencing. It'll be very interesting.
All right, Larry Neumeister, I know you have a long day ahead of you. We appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today. I'm sure we'll check in with you later on as well. Thanks so much.
Thank you.